Imagine cracking open 30 eggs, not for a restaurant, not for a birthday cake, for breakfast, and then doing it again for lunch and again for dinner every single day for an entire month. This is exactly what one man decided to do, 900 eggs in 30 days. And when his doctor saw his blood work at the end of it, he sat there staring at the results, completely baffled, because everything we have been told about eggs, about cholesterol, about heart disease, this guy's blood results basically said, yeah, none of that applies here. His bad cholesterol barely moved. His good cholesterol went up. And oh, by the way, he packed on 13 pounds of muscle in the process. But here is where it really gets wild. Like, really wild. He was not the first person to try this. Not even close. There is an 88-year-old man who ate 25 eggs a day for over 15 years, and his cholesterol levels were perfectly normal. A Harvard medical student ate 720 eggs in 1 month, and his cholesterol dropped by 20%. So what on earth is going on here? Is everything we were told about eggs a lie? Stick around because what I'm about to show you might change the way you think about food forever. Okay, so before we get to the actual experiment, I need to take you back in time because this whole eggs as a steroid replacement thing did not come out of nowhere. It has roots that go all the way back to the golden era of bodybuilding. Back in the 1960s and 70s, there was a man named Vince Gironda. They called him the Iron Guru. This guy trained some of the greatest bodybuilders who ever lived. Larry Scott, the very first Mr. Olympia, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Franco Columbu. If you were serious about building a world-class physique in that era, you trained at Vince's gym in North Hollywood. Now, Vince absolutely hated steroids. He thought they made bodybuilders look grotesque, bloated, unnatural. He wanted his guys to look like Greek statues, not inflated balloons. So he was obsessed with finding natural ways to get the same anabolic results. And this is where it gets interesting. Around that time, doctors were treating severe burn patients with a very specific protocol. They were feeding them 36 eggs a day. Why? Because the massive protein and nutrient load from the eggs were creating something called a positive nitrogen balance in the body. Basically, the body was repairing damaged tissue at an accelerated rate, and the results were so impressive that doctors noted the recovery was comparable to what they were seeing with Dianabol, which was the most popular steroid at the time. Vince Gironda connected the dots immediately. If 36 eggs a day could repair burned skin tissue at the same rate as a steroid, what would it do for muscle tissue under the stress of heavy lifting? So he started prescribing 36 eggs a day to his bodybuilders, 3 dozen fertile eggs mixed raw into shakers with half and half cream, and he made a bold claim that got the entire bodybuilding world talking. He said, and I quote, that 36 eggs a day was equivalent to a mild cycle of Dianabol. Now, was he exaggerating? Probably a little. Okay, maybe more than a little bit. Eggs are incredibly anabolic, but they are not actual steroids. Let us get real here. But his bodybuilders were getting results. Don Howarth used this method. Bill Grant used it. Don Peters used it. These were champions. And Vince was so confident that he publicly said he would put his reputation on the line to prove that his egg diet was as good as any steroid cycle. The problem, nobody actually tested this properly. It became bodybuilding folklore. A legend passed down from gym to gym until 2022, when a guy named Joseph Everett decided to actually put it to the test. Now, before I tell you what happened to Joseph, I need you to understand something about eggs that most people get completely wrong, and it is going to blow your mind. One large egg contains about 186 milligrams of cholesterol. The old guidelines said you should not eat more than 300 milligrams of cholesterol per day. So, 2 eggs and you are already over the limit, right? Well, here's the thing. Your liver produces between 800 to 1,000 milligrams of cholesterol every single day, all on its own. Your body needs cholesterol. It builds your cell membranes. It makes your hormones. It produces vitamin D. It creates bile acids for digestion. Cholesterol is not the villain. It never was. So keep that at the back of your mind, because it's about to become very important. So, Joseph Everett, he runs a YouTube channel called What I've Learned with over 2 million subscribers. He's based in Tokyo, Japan, and he's the kind of guy who would rather test something himself than argue about it on the internet. I respect that energy. He said something that I think sums up this whole experiment perfectly. He said the science on this is really limited, so instead of trying to dig up all those papers on eggs, he figured he would just go ahead and eat 30 eggs a day for a month and see what happens. Absolute madman. I love it. So here's how he set it up. Before day 1, he got full blood work done. Testosterone levels, cholesterol panel, triglycerides, the whole thing. He also measured his weight and tested his 1-rep max on 4 major lifts: barbell lifts, deadlifts, squats, and the bench press. This was going to be a proper before and after comparison. His daily diet looked like this: 30 eggs, which gave him roughly 190 grams of protein, his entire daily value of vitamin A, 120% of his daily vitamin D, tons of B vitamins. On top of the eggs, he ate some rice, a portion of beef, yogurt, fruit, honey, and occasionally a protein bar. And he paired all of this with a weightlifting routine. Now, here's the thing. 30 eggs alone gave him 2100% of the recommended daily value of cholesterol, 2,100%, plus about 45 grams of saturated fat, which is above the recommended daily maximum of 30 grams. On paper, this diet looks like a fast track to a heart attack, but Joseph had a theory. He believed that the fats and cholesterol from the eggs would be converted by his body into testosterone, and that when combined with strength training, this would supercharge his muscle growth. Basically, he was testing Vince Gironda's 60-year-old claim with modern blood work and real data. Okay, so what actually happened? The first few days were pretty uneventful. He was eating egg white omelets, raw yolk smoothies, mixing things up to keep it interesting. Then, night 5 hit, and his girlfriend was not happy. She said he had so much gas that he could not sleep. His girlfriend asked him to sleep on the sofa because the flatulence was, and I'm putting this politely, keeping her awake. Romance was taking a hit on this experiment. He traced the gas problem to mango ice cream that he was eating alongside the eggs. Mangoes are high in fermentable short-chain carbohydrates that can wreak havoc on your gut. Once he cut that out, the gas problem basically disappeared overnight. By day 9, something shifted. And this is where it gets fascinating. Joseph reported feeling noticeably different. More focused, way more energy both in and out of the gym. His libido was higher. He described himself as more driven and unreserved than usual. This lines up with what researchers have said about dietary cholesterol being a precursor to hormone production. Andrew Huberman, the Stanford neuroscientist, has talked about how testosterone makes effort feel good, and that seems to be exactly what was happening here. Joseph was suddenly excited to work out. He was writing more than usual. He was productive. He was in the zone. Was it testosterone? Was it placebo? Was it just the massive protein intake? We'll get to his actual blood work in a minute. By day 14, he got bored of cooking. This is the most relatable part of the whole experiment, honestly. Cooking 30 eggs a day is a part-time job, so he just started drinking all 30 eggs raw every day. Raw yolks, raw whites, the whole thing. For a few days, this actually worked great. He said the food sat on his stomach better, he felt lighter, less bloated, and his digestive system was, in his words, performing great. But then day 20 happened. Day 20 was brutal. He found himself stuck in the bathroom for over an hour, really constipated. His stomach was painfully cramping up. Standing up made the cramps worse, but he had to get up because he also needed to throw up. This is part of the experiment that nobody talks about when they are selling you the dream of an egg-based physique. So, what went wrong? After doing some research, he figured out the problem. Raw egg whites contain high levels of something called trypsin inhibitors. Trypsin is a digestive enzyme that helps your body break down protein. When you eat raw egg whites, these inhibitors block trypsin from doing its job, and your gut basically goes on strike. This is actually really important information. The egg yolks, totally fine to eat raw. The cholesterol in the yolks does not get oxidized by the heat that way, which is arguably better. But the whites, you need to cook those. Heat destroys the trypsin inhibitors and makes the protein far more bioavailable. Once Joseph switched back to cooking the egg whites for the final 10 days, his stomach issues disappeared completely. Lesson learned the hard way. All right, the moment you've been waiting for, the results. Let's start with the physical transformation. Joseph gained 13 pounds, that is 6 kilograms of primarily muscle mass in 30 days. His lifting performance improved dramatically. He was able to lift 44 pounds more than when he started, which is a 20 kilogram increase across his major lifts. For someone who was not a serious lifter before this experiment, those are significant gains. But the blood work, this is where it gets really interesting. His LDL cholesterol, the so-called bad cholesterol, barely moved. A tiny increase that was clinically insignificant after eating 900 eggs. Over 2,000% of the recommended daily cholesterol intake, and his LDL barely budged. His HDL cholesterol, the good cholesterol, that actually went up. HDL is the cholesterol that helps remove the bad stuff from your blood. So his body was not just surviving this insane egg intake, it was actually improving its cholesterol cleanup system. And here's the kicker. His triglycerides, which are a dangerous type of fat in your blood, linked to strokes and heart attacks, actually decreased. They went down. Now, what about testosterone? Remember, Joseph's whole theory was that all this cholesterol and fat would convert into testosterone, and that would explain the muscle gains and the increased energy and libido? Well, his final blood work showed no significant change in testosterone levels. Wait, what? Yeah, despite feeling like his testosterone was through the roof, the numbers said otherwise. So what was actually driving those gains and the feeling of increased energy? Most likely, it was the combination of extremely high protein intake, the dense nutrient profile of eggs, the consistent strength training, and potentially some psychological effects of committing fully to an experiment. Sometimes, just having a clear protocol and being all in on something gives you a mental edge that shows up in your performance. But let's zoom out for a second, because Joseph's results, as impressive as they are actually just one piece of a much bigger puzzle. I want to take you back to 1991. The New England Journal of Medicine, one of the most prestigious medical journals on the planet, they published a case study that shocked the medical community. The title basically said it all. They found a man with normal cholesterol who eats 25 eggs a day. This was an 88-year-old man living in a retirement community in Colorado. His wife had recently passed away, and he was lonely. And for some reason, he had developed a compulsive habit of eating 20 to 25 soft-boiled eggs every single day. He would cook them throughout the day and just keep eating them. Now, here's what makes this medically fascinating. His doctor, who had been tracking his health for 15 years, confirmed that this man's cholesterol levels were completely normal. We're talking a total cholesterol of 200 milligrams per deciliter and an LDL of 142. For an 88-year-old man eating 25 eggs a day for over 15 years, those numbers should have been through the roof, but they were not. Dr. Fred Kern, Jr., a gastroenterologist at the University of Colorado School of Medicine, got wind of this case and realized he had a once-in-a-lifetime research opportunity, so he brought the man in for testing. And what he found fundamentally changed our understanding of how the human body processes cholesterol. Dr. Kern tested 11 normal volunteers alongside the Egg Man. He gave the volunteers 5 extra eggs a day for about 2.5 weeks and measured how their bodies handled the additional cholesterol. The average person in that group absorbed about 55% of the dietary cholesterol on their normal diet and about 46% on the high egg diet. Their bodies adapted, well, somewhat, absorbing a little less when they ate more. But the 88-year-old Eggman, he was only absorbing 18% of his dietary cholesterol. 18%. His gut was essentially blocking over 80% of the cholesterol from even getting into his bloodstream. But that was not all. His liver was producing less cholesterol than a normal person, and the cholesterol his liver did produce was being converted into bile acids at a much higher rate than normal. Bile acids help with digestion, so his body had developed a triple defense system: less absorption in the gut, less production in the liver, more conversion to bile acids. This case was one of the earliest pieces of evidence showing that the relationship between dietary cholesterol and blood cholesterol is not what we thought. Your body is not a simple input-output machine. It adapts, it compensates. It has feedback loops that most nutritional guidelines completely ignored for decades. The man himself said something kind of sad about it. He said, "Eating these eggs ruined my life," but he cannot help it. He has been diagnosed with early Alzheimer's disease, and the egg eating has become a compulsive behavior, but his body had adapted so perfectly that it literally did not matter. Now, fast forward to 2025, a Harvard medical student named Nick Norwitz decided to take this to another level. Nick has a PhD in metabolic health from Oxford University. This is not some random guy on the internet. This is a serious scientist who happens to be brilliant at making science accessible for regular people. Nick ate 720 eggs in 30 days. This is 25 eggs per day, roughly 1 egg per hour during his waking hours. His total dietary cholesterol intake over the month came to approximately 133,200 milligrams. To put that in perspective, the old USDA guidelines recommended no more than 300 milligrams per day. Nick was consuming more than 17 times that amount every single day. His hypotheses that all of this dietary cholesterol would not increase his blood cholesterol, and if he was right, it would be one of the most dramatic demonstrations of something researchers have suspected for years, that dietary cholesterol has very little effect on blood cholesterol for most people. So what happened? During the first 2 weeks, Nick ate his eggs alongside an otherwise low-carbohydrate diet. His LDL cholesterol actually dropped by 2%. Just think about that. He's eating 24 eggs a day, flooding his body with cholesterol, and his bad cholesterol goes down. Then in the second 2 weeks, he added about 60 grams of carbohydrates per day in the form of fruits like bananas, blueberries, strawberries, and some frozen cherries dipped in macadamia butter. And this is where things got dramatic. His LDL cholesterol dropped an additional 18%. By the end of the month, eating 720 eggs and consuming 133,200 milligrams of cholesterol, Nick Norwitz's overall cholesterol had dropped by 20%. Let me just say that again so it sinks in. After eating 720 eggs in 1 month, his cholesterol went down by 20%. If that does not make you question everything you have been told about eggs and cholesterol, I don't know what will. Now, Nick was very transparent about why this happened. He explained the science in detail. When you eat dietary cholesterol, it attaches to receptors in your gut. This triggers the release of a hormone called FGF15 in mice or FGF19 in humans. This hormone then travels to the liver and essentially tells the liver to slow down its own cholesterol production. It's a feedback loop. More cholesterol coming in from food? Cool. The liver makes less. The system maintains balance. Scientists call this homeostasis, but here is the critical detail that Nick emphasized. He identified himself as what researchers call a lean mass hyperresponder. This is a subset of lean, insulin-sensitive people who, when they go on low-carb or ketogenic diets, experience elevated LDL cholesterol as part of a specific metabolic pattern. High LDL, high HDL, and low triglycerides. When Nick added carbohydrates back into his diet, even just 60 grams per day, the carbs dominated over the insane amounts of cholesterol he was eating, and his LDL plummeted. And this is the part I really want you to pay attention to. Nick himself said that his results might not apply to everyone. About 15 to 25% of the population are what scientists call hyperresponders, meaning their blood cholesterol does spike meaningfully when they eat more dietary cholesterol. For the other 70 to 85% of people, dietary cholesterol has a minimal effect on blood levels. This is not a one-size-fits-all situation, and that is exactly the point. Your genetics, your metabolism, your overall diet, your activity level, they all play a role in how your body handles cholesterol. Blanket dietary guidelines that treat everyone the same are, to put it bluntly, outdated. So let's just step back and look at the bigger picture here, because I do not want you walking away from this video thinking eggs are some kind of magic superfood that you can eat unlimited amounts of with zero consequences. That would be irresponsible. Harvard Medical School published a report stating that for most healthy people, eating 1 egg per day does not appear to increase the risk of heart disease. They noted that the liver is stimulated to make cholesterol primarily by saturated fat and trans fat in our diet, not by dietary cholesterol, and a single large egg contains only about 1.5 grams of saturated fat. That is very low. A massive study from Finland followed high-risk patients for decades, including many who carried a genetic variant called APOE4 that predisposes people to both heart disease and Alzheimer's. Even among these high-risk individuals, eating up to 1 egg per day did not appear to increase the likelihood of heart attacks or strokes. And here is something really interesting. Some studies have actually suggested that people who eat more eggs tend to have larger, less dense LDL particles. These are sometimes called fluffy particles, and the research indicates that large, fluffy LDL particles are less likely to contribute to arterial plaque buildup compared to small, dense LDL particles. So not only might eggs not raise your cholesterol in a meaningful way, the type of cholesterol they do affect might actually be the less dangerous kind. But, and this is a big but, a study from Northwestern University that followed participants for over 30 years did find that higher cholesterol consumption was associated with a greater risk of cardiovascular disease and death. The lead researcher, Norina Allen, found that for every 300 milligrams of dietary cholesterol consumed, there was a 17% higher risk of cardiovascular disease and an 18% higher risk of death from all causes, even among people who exercised and ate otherwise healthy diets. So, what do we do with all this conflicting information? The answer is nuance. The human body is incredibly complex. Blanket statements like eggs are bad or eggs are a superfood miss the point entirely. The truth is, as usual, it's somewhere in the middle and depends heavily on your individual biology. What we can't say with reasonable confidence is this. For most healthy people, moderate egg consumption, somewhere between 1 to 3 eggs per day, appears to be safe and potentially beneficial. Eggs are one of the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet. 6 grams of complete protein, all 9 essential amino acids, vitamins A, B12, and D, choline, which is critical for brain health, and which most people are deficient in, plus lutein and zeaxanthin for your eyes. All of that in the food that costs less than $1. The extreme experiments we talked about today, eating 25 or 30 eggs a day, those are fascinating for what they teach us about human metabolism and the limitations of blanket dietary advice, but they are not recommendations. Joseph Everett himself said this was an experiment, not a lifestyle prescription. Nick Norbit said the same thing. The 88-year-old Eggman had what appeared to be a unique genetic advantage. So here is what I want you to take away from all this. First, the idea that eating cholesterol directly raises your blood cholesterol is massively oversimplified. For 70 to 85% of the population, your body compensates when you eat more cholesterol by producing less in the liver. This has been confirmed in multiple studies, including that landmark 1991 New England Journal of Medicine case. Second, eggs are genuinely one of the best foods you can eat. Complete protein, dense nutrition, low calorie, affordable. They have been unfairly demonized for decades based on science that we now know was incomplete. Third, individual biology matters enormously. What works perfectly for one person might cause problems for another. If you're concerned about your cholesterol, get tested, know your numbers. Do not just follow generic advice. Fourth, and this is for my fitness-focused people out there, high egg consumption combined with strength training can absolutely support muscle growth. Joseph Everett gained 13 pounds a month. Was it equivalent to a steroid cycle like Vince Gironda claimed? Probably not, but it was impressive by any natural standard. The combination of high-quality protein, healthy fats, and targeted exercise is a proven formula. And fifth, do not eat 30 raw egg whites unless you enjoy spending quality time with your bathroom floor. Cook the whites, eat the yolks however you want. Your gut will thank you. Now, here is the thing that connects all of this together. We just talked about how Joseph Everett felt like his energy, his drive, his performance in the gym all went through the roof on this diet, and his theory was that the cholesterol and fats were being converted into testosterone. But then his blood work came back and his testosterone levels had not actually changed. So the question becomes, what if he had actually supported his testosterone production at the same time? What would those results have looked like then? The question led me down a rabbit hole, and I found something that I was not expecting. There's a specific natural compound backed by clinical studies that have been shown to support the body's own testosterone production and overall vitality without any synthetic ingredients. No injections, no prescriptions, no side effects, just your body doing what it is designed to do, but optimized. When I looked at the research behind it, I understood why guys who have tried it keep saying it feels like a cheat code. More energy, better recovery, improved focus, and they were getting results in the gym that they were not getting before, even though their diet and training were already dialed in. I'm not going to say the name here because I want you to see the full breakdown for yourself. I've put everything in the description box below and pinned it in the first comment. The guys who have already found it are not talking about it publicly because honestly, when you find something that actually works, you do not exactly want to share it with everyone. So if you're watching this and you're serious about your results, go check that link right now before this video blows up and everyone sees it. Seriously, pause this, scroll down, first comment or description. You will thank me later. Okay, now back to the bigger picture. The fact that a Harvard PhD student, an 88-year-old man, and a YouTuber in Tokyo all independently demonstrated that extreme egg consumption did not destroy their cholesterol levels tells us something profound about how little we still understand about human nutrition. We spent 40 years telling people to avoid eggs, avoid fat, eat low-fat everything, and during those exact 40 years, obesity rates skyrocketed. Heart disease remained the number one killer, and people replaced eggs and butter with processed cereals and margarine that turned out to be far worse. The lesson here is not that you should eat 30 eggs a day. Please, do not do that unless you're running a controlled experiment with blood work. The lesson is that you should question simple narratives about nutrition. Get curious about how your body responds to food. Get your blood work done. Track your results. Be your own experiment. Because at the end of the day, the most powerful thing you can do for your health is to understand your own body, and sometimes the best way to do that is to crack a few eggs. Yes, pun intended. Now, before you click away, I need to tell you something. There is one more experiment even crazier than this one that I've been researching, and the results are going to absolutely shock you. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss that video. Drop a like if this one opened your eyes, and remember, everything I mentioned here, the research, the links, the things I talked about a minute ago, it's all in the description and the first comment. So go check it out now, and I'll see you in the next one.